I just saw a really big gap between the ability for the realtor, the lender, the broker, the lawyer, everybody to kind of work together to really help the client. We're looking to be we're aiming for basically the $2 million mark this year, which is going to be more than double what we did last year. I mean, I had a great paying job and then I quit essentially to like start this. So I went from making great money, you know, I was at the time.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, Martians, to another episode of Marketing on Mars. Today, we got Alex Leduc. Super excited to talk to him. He is currently the CEO and principal broker at Perch. Perch basically is a platform that helps first-time home buyers kind of break into the market, and then for existing homeowners, kind of helping you build wealth. They're basically a tech-enabled brokerage. They recently closed a Series A, and earlier last year they closed a pre-seed. So this is a perfect time to get you, Alex, onto the show so we can talk all about that. We'll talk a little bit about revenues, talk a little bit about how you grew to where you're at now, where you just closed a Series A. We'll talk about some of the different channels that helped you grow. And we're going to take some shots of hot sauce along the way. So
sounds like a plan.
Alex, first of all, thank you for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
What do you have for us today in terms of hot sauce? I've kind of scared you a couple of weeks ago, told you there's going to be hot sauce on the show. What do you have today?
No, I went pretty basic on it. I just got my Frank's Red Hot here.
Okay. So we'll try to even it out. Like I got habanero, which is probably a little bit spicier. That's what I'm going to start with, and then I'm going to end it off with you with some Carolina Reaper. I haven't pulled this out in a while. I feel like I've been hurting my stomach a lot, but I'll do that for today. Let's start it off with I'm going to shake up my habanero. If you have like a spoon or like a shot glass, I'm using a shot glass.
Yep, I got a shot glass.
Okay, cool. So I will pour this in here. I think maybe just like a teaspoon or a little bit more. I got a little bit more in there. I don't know if you see that. That's what I got.
Yeah, I got about.
That's pretty fair. Okay.
There we go.
All right, cheers. Welcome to the show.
Cheers.
Okay.
It's like chicken wings, but without the chicken, I guess.
Yeah, we have to get a sponsor. So anyone listening that is a chicken wing fan that can create good chicken wings, talk to me. We got to get some chicken wings on the show. Alex, maybe we'll start off just by like a quick intro. I know you've had numerous roles before you started at Perch, kind of working different positions, different companies. Maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started at Perch.
Yeah, so I started Perch in 2018. Prior to that, so I've been in the mortgage space, I guess, for about, or the real estate space for about, we call it 9-10 years. So prior to starting Perch, worked at a few of the lenders here in Canada, so financial institutions. Did a variety of roles, so the residential, commercial, underwriting, treasury, audit, and then ended up in corporate finance. Worked in strategy, risk, and analytics were kind of the core areas where I focused. And yeah, then ended up starting Perch. So still very much do a lot of that today, just I guess in my own business.
Yeah. And how did the idea of Perch come about? I know you worked in the mortgage space a little bit. Did you find that there were some challenges in the market and that's when you started Perch, or did you have a co-founder at the time? Like how did the idea come up with Perch?
Yeah. So when I started, I actually had like one contractor that I had basically just, put in my savings, hired somebody and then started it. So I didn't have a co-founder, but it was really just kind of seeing it firsthand. So people moving through the home buying process, it tends to be, I compare it to somebody who's 63 that goes in to see their wealth advisor that's like, I'd like to start saving for my retirement. It's like, well, there's not much you can do at this point. With home buying, it's kind of the same, especially because as housing affordability worsens and as it becomes harder for people to enter the housing market, I just saw a really big gap between the ability for the realtor, the lender, the broker, the lawyer, everybody to kind of work together to really help the client, not just when they're buying, but when they're looking to buy. So it's like, how do you help get somebody the right advice early on? Didn't see anybody that was doing it, so figured, let's take a stab at it. We'll do it myself.
So basically, you try to reach out to these first-time home buyers before they even, like very early stage when they're thinking about buying. You try to get them as early as possible so that you can educate them along the way. What percentage, things like what percentage of your total net worth should you put into a down payment and things like that, right?
Well, so that was the original concept, basically, of helping people that are not immediately looking to buy a home and like to put them on a plan, basically, to be able to buy eventually. And then how our product has evolved over time is we then took that concept and built in a set of optimization algorithms into our system. So we're then able to take your situation and go, how much faster can we accelerate your timeline based on what we know from available products that are out there? And then we took it further again by expanding the brokerage arm to also include a lending arm as a separate entity that we can essentially leverage to create custom loan solutions or mortgage products that enable somebody to break into the market faster. So it's really kind of been an ever evolving process of how do I get somebody to buy a home and how do I do it effectively so there's actually a financial benefit in doing so. The goal isn't to put everybody in a house, it's to put people in a home where it makes sense for them, kind of thing.
I see. Okay, cool. So you have an in-house brokerage house as well, right? So not only do you give advice for first-time home buyers, eventually when they want to start a mortgage, you can also provide that as well in-house.
Yeah, exactly. So we never wanted to, like from the beginning, we were pretty adamant that we'll never just be like lead generation. Our goal was to have like one of the elements, and we decided to focus on the mortgage. And then we refer out for everything. Like we have awesome realtor partners that we work with. So we refer it out when they need a realtor. We refer it out when they need a wealth advisor. In the sense that we work with those people to enable them to close. But then where our product is the mortgage, basically.
Okay, cool. All right. We'll dive into a little bit more about how you grew, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more about the back end as well later on. But essentially, you have a bunch of in-house tools to analyze different data points, right? We'll talk about that. But let's talk about the most recent thing that happened. You guys raised a Series A. First of all, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing. Tell us, how much did you raise, and who were some of the lead investors, if you can share that?
Yeah, so we closed a $4 million Series A round. Some of our investors some of our larger investors essentially would be, so we had Best Funds, so they're based out of Toronto. We had Second Century Ventures, who's been with us actually since the last round and seed since we were in their Reach Accelerator. They're based out of the US, but they also are in Canada. And then we had the OCI, so the Ontario Centre of Innovation, that participated in this round as well. We also had our existing investors that followed on for additional capital.
Wow. And what was the, are you guys revenue generating currently already?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, we are.
Yeah. What is that a figure that you can share, or any kind of range as well that you can share?
Revenue wise? Yeah. So essentially we're looking to be we're aiming for basically the $2 million mark this year, which is going to be more than double what we did last year. I
see. And, what was the valuation at your 4 million, 2 million revenue? So was there at a certain valuation?
Couldn't tell you that one. You'd have to participate in the next round and know.
Oh, wow. Okay. We got so much out of you, and then we got, okay. All right. I think the Martians were not happy with that answer. Let's do a shot.
Deal's a deal.
Together. Deal's a deal. Let's do this. All right. I'm gonna, oh God. Oh no. Okay.
All right.
Cheers. I want to be careful what I ask you now. From now on.
Yeah, I guess it's debatable who it's more punishing for at this point.
Oh my God. Okay, so valuation unknown, revenue around 2 million, closing at the end of this year. Do you have stats on like total number of users, or what kind of metrics do you guys measure in terms of knowing how successful you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we have about 2,500 users, and for us, it's not like number of users isn't really our core metric because, as you know, a real estate transaction is pretty large. So we don't need a ton of users, and it also has to do with frequency. Like we don't look at daily active users because once you have a mortgage, like it's not really changing that often. So for us, our target frequency is we try to engage our users once a quarter, just to catch them up on how things have changed since they've last evolved. But then obviously that's different when you have a live deal. So if somebody's in a mortgage application that's closing, then we are very much active, like on a not even daily, probably hourly basis with them, try to get everything done. So it just depends on kind of, it's hyper involved when there's a need, and then it's more hands off when it's kind of, in status quo mode where nothing needs to be done.
Let's see. How large is the team currently at Perch?
So we actually, that was really one of the large reasons for the raise. So we actually tripled our team size year over year. So we went from, or almost tripled. So we went from 7 to 20 today. So today we're a team of 20. We're sprinkled across Canada.
Wow. And are they, what kind of roles do you have currently right now? Like what does the team consist of? Mostly marketers?
Yeah, so we're, no, actually quite the opposite. So we have 4 engineers. So on the software development side.
4 engineers.
We've got 2 product people. We've got 3 designers. And then we've also got 2 operations people, 2 sales, and then 4 marketing. I think
4 marketing.
I think I got everybody. But yeah, that's basically, that should be, if it doesn't add up to 20, then I might have missed somebody. But yeah, essentially, but that's generally the composition.
Okay, so about 20 now. But when you first started, it was just you and a contractor. So let's take it all the way back when you first started. I believe this was about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago when you first started.
2019 or 2018. Sorry,
2018. Tell us about the first year starting off. You did so much of it yourself. Do you remember the first couple of clients you got? How difficult were they, and how did you acquire those first few customers?
Yeah, so just looking at the product now, because it's funny because I have like an archive basically of user testing of like various recordings. And I just remember how cool I thought the product was back then. And looking at it now, I'm like, oh my God, this is actually awful. But essentially obviously I guess it's all relative, right? But back then, the product itself, so we had no designers. We had one contractor who was doing front end development. And then basically, like I was kind of doing everything else. So the client, I guess, got a very hands-on experience because the platform was definitely not patchy, but it was super like very low fidelity kind of MVP concept. So it was not super intuitive, but it'd be good to be on the phone so you can give them service. And if you have people that are kind of in that early adopter category, they're willing to go through a lot just because they're like, yeah, no, I'll support what you're doing. Like I believe in what you're doing. So that was really honestly phenomenal to see, because I'd say customers are obviously a large reason of how we got this far anyways. If not like the main reason. But it's really, so there would definitely be people that would get frustrated and leave. But then there would be people that would stick it out. They'd be open to phone calls. They would give feedback. Some people would give paragraphs of like, hey, like here's how I would improve the product. Especially if they work in a product role. Those were by far the most generous people with their feedback. But yeah, it was really, I think it was nice to see that there was a lot of people willing to support you in what you're doing, and they're willing to take a shot at it because they saw the potential, not just necessarily where it was today.
Yeah. And so, like your first few clients, was it through your network? Because I know you were in the mortgage space prior. So was it just like your network kind of coming to you, or did you test out any ads in the early beginnings or conferences? Like what were some of the channels that led to the first 5 or 10 clients that use Perch?
Yeah, so initially it's definitely heavily based on your network. So you start telling everybody what your business is, and then you hope that they like refer people. And then sure enough, they do. They'll be like, hey, my buddy actually just bought a house. He needs a mortgage. You should chat with him. And then once that's not enough, then you start filling the funnel. So we did play around with ads early on. So whether it was Google ads predominantly, but like also some Facebook ads. And then you just get the good old form fill, give me your name, your phone number, your email, and then you just reach out and close. So those were by far more difficult because there's way less of a trust there versus like a warm introduction. So those were to me like the ultimate test, because if you can close a cold lead, then like you're doing something right in your system.
Yeah, is that really difficult to do in the mortgage or that world, to have like a cold lead coming through an online source and then they actually end up buying a house, or actually filling out a mortgage or application with you? Is that very rare, or is it actually pretty common now?
So it's not even. I guess one, it is kind of it is difficult in the sense that, so there's two reasons why it's difficult. The first one is that there's just essentially, let's call it like a level of commitment that's required. So it just depends on where people are in their life cycle, right? The second one is then also just a matter of the fact that the sales cycle is so long. Because if I had a mortgage lead today, I'm not going to close it for on average 3 months from now, or even longer, maybe 4 months.
Or longer, yeah.
Because typically what the life cycle looks like is somebody will have to put together a plan. They might be 1 year away from being able to qualify. They might be able to qualify today. It's really kind of a huge range. Then once they qualify, they have to go find a home. And that can take anywhere from 5 days to like 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, right? So I've had clients that I closed that I got like a year and a half ago. So like it can take a very long time. And then once they close, like once they get an offer, then it typically takes 60 to 90 days until they close. And that's when the mortgage actually funds. So you have to be patient. And then there's naturally just, it's not everybody that's going to close with you, right? So you can't go in with that mentality. Like every pre-approval is going to be a funded deal. There's people that are going to end up funding somewhere else, or doing or not even buying a home, putting off their search perpetually. You just have to kind of roll with it and make sure you understand how to prioritize your time, but also if it's not going to close with you, get them in your system. So if it's not somebody that's going to be a lead or a deal today, maybe you can get them at renewal, maybe you can get them at refinance. So just keep them in your ecosystem is the most important thing.
I see. And is that one of the main reasons why paid is not such a huge channel for you? Or are there other reasons why paid just doesn't work in this space for you?
So I think paid does work. It just depends on the business model. So I think for us, we chose not to go after paid for really like two main reasons. So the first one is that paid is where everybody else plays. So it kind of bids up the price of entry. But then at the same time, it's like anybody can get into paid. So like if there's a low barrier, then you kind of get lost in the noise. So no one's going to click through all the different mortgage ads to go, I'm now going to go compare all of their flows and see which one gives me the best thing. People will typically shop it around. They'll go to get a ton of us. Some people will get 40 different offers. Some people will get 2, or some people will get 1. But we found that with paid, you have such a low, we're not a well-known brand, right? We're not as big as some of the Canadian financial institutions. So people have never heard of us. You immediately have to gain their trust very quickly, which is hard to do without being very manually involved, which we don't want to do. So typically people that are heavily active in paid will have a massive sales force of agents that can pick up the phone and call, but it's very manual. Our system is more meant to be a bit more streamlined and automated. So what we found success in is we're actually integrated into this other referral channels. So customer referrals, organic traffic, and referral partnerships are where we found the most success, because it just better aligns with our business model, because you don't have to overcome this massive gap of trust because they're being referred to us by somebody they already trust. And then the second element is quality of leads. With all the latest Apple updates and iOS updates to help, we've seen a dramatic reduction in how valuable the audience that gets targeted is. So then you start getting a higher CPA, or cost per, let's call it a higher advertising cost in any of these channels. And then you see a decrease in conversion because the quality of the people ends up being lower. So you've got increased competition, which bids up the price. You've got changes in regulation and essentially the systems that reduces the quality. So when you combine those two things, the economics no longer make sense for us. So we'd rather leverage our advantage, which to us is our technical advantage, or technological advantage, I should say, by leveraging integrations and scalability and automation, and kind of putting those tools to the test and working through those channels instead.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you made that decision. And was that a decision that you made very early on, like a year in, or was it just kind of recently that you started pushing towards more of these they're basically affiliate partners, right? Because you're working with the real estate brokers and the wealth, or I'm assuming real estate brokers and other wealth advisors, right? And they have their clientele, and they'll bring them to Perch, right? Is that how it
exactly.
works?
So it'll be like real estate agents, wealth advisors, renovations, home and auto insurance, like really anything that kind of ties into that entire home ownership ecosystem. We're working with them to make sure that there's a clear ability for us to add value to them and for them to add value to us.
Right. And
we made that
how does
decision
work?
probably in like 2020, I'd say 2021. Because at the beginning, we definitely had to do paid advertising. One, it was at that time, like, 3-4 years ago, it was still, I'd say, higher value than it is today. It was also slightly less competitive. But it was just like, at that point, we had no tech. It was basically just a concept with a couple tools. So like, it's not like we had enough to go on where we could really go out and get affiliate partnerships, because nobody would partner with us at that point for sure.
Oh yeah. CPC costs are going through the roof in every single industry, right? And so it's a good play for you guys as a startup. You want to bootstrap. You want to do as much as you can for every single dollar. And ads, maybe just not the right time right now. So that makes a lot of sense. How does the partnerships work with you guys? Do they integrate in the back end? You create like a separate like Perch .io. Is it .io or .ca?
So it's myperch.io.
Myperch.io. Okay, so myperch.io / marketing on Mars, and then I send that to my clients. Or how does that? How does the relationship work with the real estate brokers and Perch right now?
Yeah. So for example, with our realtors, what happens is, or any of our referral partners, is they create a profile and it generates a unique referral link. So why we kind of went with that model. So it's not like it's nothing crazy. Like the referral link model is used by many people, but we like it because essentially they can embed it anywhere, whether it's email, on their website. Like they can drive traffic to Perch, and then based on the referral link, we're able to associate it to them. They can also invite clients from within their system. But where we go a little bit further is that we're also trying to drive value in a way where, for example, with our realtors, they are inviting clients, but then they have their own dashboard within Perch where they can see the status of their leads and how they're progressing and advancing towards their home buying. So it's not just like, give us a lead and we'll pay you. It's like, give us a lead and we'll convert more of your leads into deals, which is really what they're looking for. So we're trying to grow each other's business. And then it's reciprocal. That's another big thing too. It's not just like send in. We then have clients that come in that don't have a realtor, and we'll go, hey, we have the perfect realtor to recommend you, and we'll send it to our realtor partners as well.
Interesting. So you're almost like a CRM system for real estate brokers. Is that?
So not a CRM in the sense that like we're not going to be your Salesforce, but we're essentially like an extension of your CRM. Where it's like, hey, you have leads at the top of funnel. Let Perch qualify your leads and then help you close more deals. And then same thing with wealth advisors. Same thing with all these other partners, is that help us qualify your clients. Because once you're qualified and you have the financing, it enables pretty much anything else after that. So we're naturally just one of the key pieces of the entire equation.
Cool. Okay, cool. So not a lot of paid partnerships. What percentage of your marketing, because you got different marketing channels, right? I assume you have some organic, you got social, you got paid, which is not a lot, and then you got partnerships. What percentage of your marketing channels come through the partnerships nowadays, and what percentage comes from social or organic? Like, do you have like a breakdown of that?
Yeah, actually, here I've got it right here, because I've got like my
perfect
metrics right beside me. I'm like, just in case you ask for numbers, I'm like, at least I can give you something.
Nice.
So right now, about 60% of our profiles created will come through organic channels, which and then about 25%, 30% or 40% will come through referrals, whether it's customer referrals, realtor referrals, partner referrals. And then, about 4% or like 3 to 5% is paid.
Okay, so
almost like
still majority,
no paid, basically.
Almost no paid. Majority still coming from organic and word of mouth. And then this, would you call it B2B to C, or what would you call this channel?
So the customer referrals would be like to be like the word of mouth, but then realtors, referral partners, I agree 100% would be B2B to C.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, Amazing. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about kind of. Do you have stats on like what the CPA is of let's say like a referral partner versus organic? Because organic really your only cost is just your team, right?
Yep.
You're not doing anything paid, so and you're not doing any PR as well, right? Do you do a
Uh,
lot of PR?
Very minimal. So actually, we end up getting a lot of earned media with like we have awesome network of media outlets out there that'll kind of spread the word of Perch,
Yeah,
and yeah, they've been featuring us. So we've been able to get a lot of coverage at little or no cost.
yeah. Okay. So then, do you calculate? I know this is hard, but like, do you calculate the CPA
Oh,
through
definitely.
organic versus the CPA on through your partnership channels?
So we don't look at it from an organic standpoint. Like, so yeah, I get what you're saying, but basically, like when we look at it, we don't factor in the cost of like we don't try to allocate people's time into like different channels. So we just look at it strictly
Hmm.
as like cost to acquire from a marginal standpoint of like every additional person I bring in, assuming my overhead is flat. So we've
Yeah.
calculated our customer acquisition cost to be at roughly $630 for each user.
Wow. Okay, and that's a blended CPA
And that would be
with
our blended, yeah.
partnerships.
So with customer referrals or with referrals, it ends up being closer to like, yeah, about like so customer referrals end up being somewhere more in like the 300 to 340 range, and then general referrals are in the 500 to 600 range, and then paid is like in the 2,000 range kind of thing. So yeah, it's
Oh
hence why we
yeah.
don't do a lot of
Ex-
it.
yeah, that makes sense. And then, how does your business model work? Like, where is the revenue coming from? And so, like, when you're calculating your LTV, I assume you have like also LTV to CAC calculation as well,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, so
Like,
our lifetime,
where does
our
that come
revenue
from? Yeah,
is yeah, so the bulk of it is brokerage commission. So our mortgage brokerage gets paid a fee by the lender whenever we close. So the client actually pays
yeah,
nothing to use our systems. If anything, they typically can only save money, really. So then we get paid by the lender a commission or whatever's left of the commission after we've passed back most of it to the user.
yeah.
Because that's how we are able to get people better rates, better products, things like that by just cutting the commission that we earn. So we'll earn
Right,
commission from the lender. We then earn in our we have a lending arm as a separate entity, and then that will earn a spread above its cost of capital. So that'll be additional revenue. And then we have referral fees. So if people do take us up on a referral to another party, just like we pay for referrals, they pay us for our referrals. So at a high level breakdown, 65% of our revenue is from the brokerage, 25 from the lending arm, and 10% from referral fees.
wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And sorry, you were mentioning earlier before I cut you off, the LTV. Like, is that something that you're watching as well? Like, what is your rough LTV to CAC
Yeah, so our
currently?
customer lifetime value is about 10,000. So relative to our CAC is about
Whoa,
16 times.
16 times LTV
There
to
we go.
CAC.
A lot of room to grow there.
That is that is amazing. So for the audience that are listening, usually like LTV to CAC, like when the VC is looking to invest in you, from what I heard, anywhere higher than 11 or 12 is usually a good LTV to CAC ratio. And that's where the appetite for VC will start to kick in. But at 16x, that is incredible. And it's no wonder you guys closed a funding. It was very recent, right? Like a month ago that you closed your
Yeah,
round.
literally this month, actually in October.
Literally this month, yeah. So wow, 16x LTV to CAC ratio. That's definitely where. So you guys have a little bit of room to play around with your CPA a little bit, right?
Exactly. So that's really the main benefit is that since if you have large like CLTV to CAC multiples, then it gives you room to like try, even if it's a more expensive channel, because the goal isn't to minimize the ratio. The goal is to like essentially grow in a cost
Exactly,
effective way. So we're okay if that
exactly.
compresses,
Yeah,
but we're essentially,
yeah.
yeah, it gives us room to try different things. Because over
Cool.
time we're just finding there's always these new mediums that we can kind of play and experiment around with, but then at least it makes it
Yeah.
so there's a quick payback, and then from a cash flow standpoint it's also useful because then you have a very quick repayment on your acquisition costs.
Yeah, no, amazing. So what kind of cool things are you guys going to be testing out? So you guys just started doing more partnerships. Are you looking into other partnership areas or potentially looking back at paid? Like what kind of strategies would you want to be implementing now that you guys have, raised a significant amount? What kind of things would you guys be testing?
Yeah, so we've like literally in the last 3 months we've signed on a bunch of new referral partners. So what's going to be awesome is at this point we're kind of now looking to just build on our referral partnerships. So our goal is not to get as many referral partnerships as possible. We've kind of just we mapped out the
Yeah.
entire flow, found the right ones
Yeah.
in all those different verticals. And now it's really just going to be a matter of like we have an extensive content calendar and initiatives planned. So it's going to be a mixture of content, a mixture of tools, analytics, integrations, things that we're going to do with these with our partners to essentially drive value to both users. So we
Yeah.
think that's going to show and materialize in traffic to us as well. With our realtors, we're actually going to be working very closely with them to help promote new products and strategies because we've been finding a lot of,
Mm.
especially in this market, a lot of first-time home buyers that are priced out when they go through the traditional channel of getting a pre-approval. So we're able to help people get into the market, which inevitably, like if you're a realtor, you're motivated to close deals. So if you can find a partner that can help you overcome financing barriers, then that's a huge motivator. And then we think the next year is going to be, roughly or relatively subdued from a housing activity standpoint. So, you need all the help you can get.
Okay.
And then lastly, in
Yeah.
2023, we're going to shift our focus, or not shift, but we're going to expand our focus, I should say, from realtors to wealth advisors. Because the
Mm.
second part of our equation is once we get somebody in the housing market, great, you can start building wealth, but then it's what happens after that. So we have a lot of
Mm.
users that have excess home equity that are heavily over what's the word I'm looking for? Over,
Leveraged?
not over leveraged, more like overexposed like real estate
Overexposed.
is like 90% of their net worth. So it's like you should
Ah.
actually look at diversifying your portfolio. So we're
Hmm.
helping people before they retire to take that equity, buy liquid assets, assets that have a yield, assets that can generate income, earn compound spreads, build wealth outside of real estate. So we're big believers in real estate, but then we also believe that people aggressively paying down their 1.9% mortgage with nothing in their TFSA, nothing in their RSP is not a good strategy. So we're trying to share that information and then connecting with a wealth advisor that can kind of put that plan in action.
Cool. No, that's amazing. All right. So we talked a little bit about where Perch is at. We talked about where you guys are going. Um, maybe just to kind of close things off. Like, obviously, you guys are you guys are 4 years in and seeing some amazing success, raise some money. What tip would you give to someone who's maybe just starting out their startup now, or maybe they're 1 or 2 years in and they're kind of struggling? Like, what tip would you give to someone who's just starting out?
Yeah, so someone just starting out, uh, I think the biggest thing of just thinking back to like when I started out. So like I had no income. I mean, I had like a great paying job, and then I quit essentially to like start this. So I went from
Yeah.
making great money. I was at the time had an apartment, was renting, not a lot of expenses, no kid, everything. So I was in a position where I had also built some savings. So I was able to be like, you know what? If I don't make money for a year, I ended up not making money for 2 years, essentially. So zero income for 2 years before I could start paying myself any salary.
Wow.
It's just being realistic about it. So I see a lot of people go in with no financial backbone, or not backbone, but
Like a
backup plan.
foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, no economic like
Yeah.
cushion to help you get through it. Where it's like, oh, I'll raise money. It's like it's not that easy. Like especially in
No.
the early stages when you're in the incubation stage, unless you have a very deep network and you have commitments, or you're a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits, you're going to struggle to get capital until you're in the pre-seed seed stage of your business realistically. So don't go in racking up lines of credit card debts to eventually explode, because the worst thing you can do for yourself is to put yourself against your own clock, where now it's not your business model, it's not your projections, it's nothing that's actually going to put you out of business. It's just
It's
like
just time.
you've now maxed
Yeah.
yourself out so much that you just can't anymore. So that would be the worst.
Wow.
So just being realistic about it. So I think when people look at businesses or starting a business, if you can do a lot of the things, then you don't need as much staff. That's fantastic. But there's only so many hours in a day. So figure out, where do I add the most value? Find people that you can either hire or give sweat equity or hire as a co-founder to build the business with you. Because I think if you go in being like, I'm going to own the entire business, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, it's not realistic if you're going to raise no capital. And then you're also going to hire, like, need a bunch of people. So just kind of set those expectations early, but then find the right people, because a lot of people will then also just bring in somebody just for the sake of starting. And then a year in, that other person loses motivation, and then you have to buy them out if you didn't structure it properly. So yeah, I think it's really just plan for what those first 3 years look like, of how long is it going to take to get this business to where it needs to be a sustainable thing. And then take that estimate and add 50 to 100%, and then assess, like, if you have the resources to essentially get there. And if you don't, then rethink your strategy, I think, is really how I would kind of look at it.
I love that. Yeah. Even for you guys, perfect example. You guys didn't raise your pre-seed until 3.5 years or 3 years in to your startup journey, right? And imagine if you didn't have that safety cushion and you needed money 1 year in. Well, then you're either going to implode and everything's going to come crashing down, and you now cannot continue on with your startup, or you're going to be so stressed every single month when you see your bills come in, right? So yeah, that's a great some great advice. And then maybe one last thing, and then we'll jump out, just because I'm very interested. What about remote working? Your whole team is remote nowadays, right? No office, and it's been like that since the very beginning, my understanding, right? So what have you guys figured out? You're 4 years into this. What are some of the tips for retention? Because you got a team of 20 now, and you've retained some talent. What are some, like, talent retention tips or things that you're doing in the office that build culture, especially in this world of remote working? Because there's a lot of founders that are listening to this episode that are probably they have a team that everyone's remote. So, like, I don't know. You got any tips? Keep people around, keep people happy, keep people sane.
Yeah. So we actually have, like, pretty much no attrition at our company. So that's been really great. And then really, so I think I'll maybe start with the pros of why we decided to go remote, and then I'll talk about, like, some of the benefits or how to work remotely. The one thing we looked at when we first went remote is, like, naturally when you're starting up, like, rent is a very large expense that you can avoid. Like, that's potentially one salary, and when you're a team of 2 or 3, that's like a third of your team. It's something that's worth considering, or maybe half the salary. So that's one thing. The second thing is your access to talent. So things might be getting a little bit different now. It's slightly a bit more balanced, but even a year or two ago, the tech talent market was so ridiculously hot that, like, wages were going up crazy fast, that if you were very particular of, I can only hire software engineers in Toronto, you're missing out on a lot of potential talent. So it's like, if you expand your radius of, like, forget just Toronto, but look at Ontario, look at Canada, look at North America, look at, like, on a global level, you're going to find talent. You just have to then kind of work around it. So I think that's something that we were really open to, and it's helped us find really great people, and they don't necessarily all live in Toronto. So we're spread out across Canada. And then the second element, so those were kind of like a lot of the reasons why we went remotely. And then once you decide to go remotely, I don't think you can kind of go halvesies on it. Like, you're either fully remote or you're not. Because those Christmas movies when, like, there's the family having dinner inside, like, this hot, it's warm, well-lit place, and then there's, like, the one person in the snow and it's dark and they're looking inside the window. That's kind of how I would compare, like, if you're half or like not fully remote, is you've got somebody who has to dial into calls. They see everybody having an awesome time in person, and then they're just on the call and they're completely isolated. Then there's conversations that happen after the meeting that they're not part of, and they just it's inevitable. And it's not a bad thing. Like, you're having those conversations because your team is building a culture. But when you're building a culture and somebody's not part of it, then they're naturally going to either leave or just feel isolated. So when you're fully remote, everybody's on a level playing field. So it's kind of made fair. So I just think that's something you have to be super conscious about if you're going to decide to do a hybrid of it, of how do I make other people not feel excluded? So that's one key thing that I see a lot of companies definitely, I guess, mess up on. The second thing is, if you're going to go remote, don't remove the benefits of remote. Like, don't have a fixed working schedule. If you have to be on 9 to 5, you have to be on Monday to Wednesday or Monday to Friday. Because what's the point? Like if it's remote and people can do something that's not like a customer facing role that needs to have certain hours, obviously there's exceptions. Give people flexibility in their working hours. Give people flexibility even in the days that they're working, where they're working. I had somebody who when they went on vacation, they booked an Airbnb just to get out of the city, and they worked remotely for like 2 weeks. Doesn't affect me at all. Like I don't care. So things like that of like remote enables flexibility. We've even had some of our staff actually move cities because it was just like a better standard of living and they liked it better there. And it was like, they, got their home and everything. So it was really cool when you break down location and vocation where they no longer matter. You're just working and it doesn't matter where you live. That's like the full remote ideal. Then when it comes to building culture, because you're totally right, there's going to be elements of that in person that can't be reproduced. But in a way, when you give somebody all of those freedoms that come outside of work and you give them a problem that's worth solving, you hope that it kind of makes up for it. But we still have at least once a year an annual event where we fly everyone in and we're all in the same city. And then I'll go across the coast. Like, if I was in Vancouver a couple months ago, or actually time goes by. I think it was actually at least 4 months ago now, but time goes by. It feels like a month ago.
You're in Toronto?
Yeah, so I'm in Toronto. And then basically what happens is if you're having those in-person events and also encouraging teams to have events with their own team, you're building culture as a company, but you're also building culture with your teammates, which to me is the most important because that's usually why people stick around. So if you're encouraging that at the top, then all of your director, your senior level people will be motivating and projecting the same culture to their team. And I think that's why we have a good culture and people aren't leaving because basically they're being paid well. They have flexibility, they have freedom, and it's no one's at a disadvantage. I think it's a fair way to do it. And then ultimately it enables people to do what they love when they want, like where and when they can.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Alex, appreciate you coming on. I think the lights are off, telling us the time's up. But maybe what we'll do is we'll just end off this episode with just a last shot of hot sauce. I'm gonna go down a little bit because that Carolina Reaper really did kill me. So I'm gonna do habanero. But Alex, whenever you're coming back down to Vancouver, let me know. We'll do some hot sauce in person.
There we go.
But man, really appreciate you, and congratulations on the recent fundraise. I think you guys are up to crazy things. I'm excited for what's to come in 2023, and we'll have to get you back on in the new year.
Sounds like a plan. Look forward to giving the Martians the update on how 2023 went. Cheers.
All right, cheers.